Welcome back to the field. We're back for week number 3. We apologize for missing last week. We had a lot of storm, heavy rainfall and a lot of hail the last week or 10 days in the area. So we've been running around assessing stands and making some replant decisions. You know, luckily we're still at that time of the storms, we were still V2, V3 in most of our early planted corn. So obviously that growing point beneath the soil surface still. So in the majority of cases we were fine. Not ideal, but stands are still seem to be okay. Not worth replanting. So this week now we're really focusing on, and tail end of last week, we're starting to see some nematode feeding in some of our historically bad fields, maybe around Eckley, some around Yuma, where we start to see that nematode feeding, root feeding really start to take or have an impact on above ground growth. When we typically see that is around that V3 growth stage, when that plant goes from using the nutrition in the seed to actually uptake of nutrients through the roots. So which usually happens about V3. So that's where a lot of our fields were last week, and we for sure started to see some nematode feeding in those fields where historically we've seen a lot of pressure. This is an example of a plant that has what I would call severe nematode damage, root feeding. You can see the discoloration in some of the radical or original radical root, and you'll notice the first node's nodal root system has just really been hammered. The root tips are brown, a lot of brown scarring on really every square inch of that root has some feeding. We compare that to a neighboring plant just down the row. You can see the difference. Obviously nice white healthy roots for the most part. Some of the root tips do have a little bit of scarring on them, but not bad at all. And typical with nematodes, these plants were within a few feet of each other, but they seem to seek out the weak plants and just hammer them and attack them. So we're starting to see that in some of our historically bad nematode fields. Luckily over the weekend we had a lot of 90-degree temp or high 80s, mid 80s, and no rainfall for the most part in the area. So really that's what ideal this time of year to get those nematodes deeper in the soil, let those roots recover, is heat and sunshine. So hopefully these next few days we'll get that warming trend in the 90s and get those nematodes deeper in the profile so those roots can recover. We do have several trials out this year with some nematicides in furrow, which we'll maybe hit on next week real briefly, some of the observations we've had early on in those trials. So, and then once again we're starting to see in our hybrid trial here, really starting to see some differentiation in early vigor, which we'll hit on also. Couple of the key things that we've noticed, the VT4 trait package and also the Tricepta trait package. The hybrids that have those trait packages in them, excellent early season vigor. So we'll kind of hit on that next week as well. So we'll talk to you next week. Have a great week.